So today I decided to go with a video that I get suggested every once in a while, and that's to do Where Are They Now videos for NFL players too. Now I'm not the biggest NFL fan, I watch a few games every season and I keep up with it, but that's about it. But I think it could be a good thing to do Where Are They Now videos for NFL players, NBA players as usual, and also really any popular athletes. So this first one's going to be to test things out and to get your guys' feedback to see if you like it. The rest are still going to be about basketball, so comment your thoughts about how you feel about that going forward and let me know what you think. But as you can tell in today's video, we're looking at Ray Rice. Now based on the things he's done, this might not be the guy most deserving of a video, but he was one of the more popular players in the NFL, but since leaving he hasn't really been heard of. He hasn't even touched his social media accounts since his ban from the NFL. So I think this is a good way to give an update video on where he's at now. He was one of the best running backs in the league, and he became the face for the Baltimore Ravens. He's a former Super Bowl champion, but he hasn't been on an NFL field since his incident took place in 2014. We're going to get into that in a minute and where he's at now. But first, we'll take a quick look at the events that led him to where he is today. Right after, we give a shout out to the sponsor of this video, SeatGeek. The best place anywhere to get tickets to sport events, concerts, Broadway shows, or pretty much any event. They're the best because they aggregate tickets from all over the web to make buying simple and to find you the best deal. But not only that, they score each deal to let you know how good it is. Green's good and red is bad. SeatGeek even shows you a view from your seat inside the arena. So go check it out by using the link in the description, then use my code SWEAT with 2 T's for $20 off your first order. Now back to the video. Ray Rice was born back in 1987 in New Rochelle, New York. He grew up in a rough area and had some rough spots in his childhood. When he was 1, his father was killed in a drive-by shooting, and then his cousin was killed by a drunk driver when he was 10. But by the time he got to high school, he was a star football player. He won a state title in 2003 and made it to the championship game as a senior. He'd go on to Rutgers University and become a star there. He turned them around and as a freshman led them to their first winning season in 25 years, and their second bowl game in school history. From that point on, he became an elite running back for them and stayed there for 3 years before going 55th overall in the 2008 NFL Draft. Ray had a good start in his NFL career in 2008 and he'd get better every year, eventually working his way up to one of the top running backs in the league at one point. Personally for him, he peaked in the 2011 season, but then played a part in winning the Super Bowl in 2013. And a year later in 2014 was when the disturbing video came out of him hitting and dragging his wife out of an elevator. So where is he now? Well, soon after the incident with his wife came out, they were both arrested for fighting each other, and he was arrested for domestic violence. It was possible that his jail sentence was going to be 3 to 5 years, but the charges were later dropped after Ray Rice decided to attend counseling. And then 6 weeks later, himself and his fiancée Janae Palmer got married. And then it was announced that he was going to be suspended for the first 2 games of the 2014 NFL season. And fans everywhere were outraged at the length of the suspension. Roger Goodell responded by saying that he thought the suspension was right because it was consistent with past suspensions. What a guy. But later he finally smartened up and announced longer suspensions for domestic violence in the future. And he said that the original 2-game suspension was wrong. But then in September, a second video came out of him actually hitting his wife, which led to the Ravens immediately releasing Ray Rice. The reasoning was because he told them what happened in the elevator that night months earlier. It wasn't at all what he had told them. And then the NFL suspended him indefinitely. But soon after, Ray appealed the suspension, and about a month later he was reinstated by the league, making him eligible to sign with the team and play again. But thankfully, no matter how much he said the program that he was in was helping him, or how much of a better person he said he was, no team would pick him up. By January 2016, he was confident the team would still pick him up for the upcoming season, and then in May of that year, he went back to the Ravens locker room to talk to the younger players and the rookies about how important it is to be a good person and role model while in the league. It was also said that at that time he was training like crazy to stay in NFL shape. What are those? And that same month, it was announced that him and his wife Janae were expecting their second child together later that year. But when July came around and still no calls came in, the 29-year-old Ray Rice, in the prime of his life, pledged to donate his entire first year's salary to domestic violence programs. And that wasn't enough to convince teams either. And by September of that year, Ray and Janae Rice's second child was born. And then a month later, he started taking responsibility for his actions because he said what he did to his wife was the worst decision of his life. And he said, "I have 2 kids who I now have to raise my son to grow up to be a man, but I also have to protect my daughter from myself, a guy that could potentially be like me in my worst moments." In 2017, it came out that since his suspension, he had been helping coach his old high school and trying to mentor the young players there. He said he'll never give up on trying to return to the NFL, but since he had more time on his hands, he started to spend more and more time being an assistant coach for his old high school team. In April 2017, it was announced that Ray Rice and the NFL were finally together again, but not with him playing football. Instead, he was a part of the program that the NFL created after his situation, which was a social responsibility presentation to all of its staff and players. And now he's the lead speaker for the league against domestic violence. And most recently in February 2018, there's a rumor going around that Ray Rice might return to the Baltimore Ravens in 2019, but as a part of their staff, probably an assistant coach in some capacity. But we'll see how that goes. Whether you think he's doing these things because he's a changed person or just for good publicity, that's up to you. But personally, I don't think the man deserves a second chance in any capacity in the league. He's still married, shockingly, and has been working to fight against domestic violence and educate young players about it. But I don't think it's enough. So comment what you think, and if you think he should be allowed back in the league. Also comment to let me know who you want to see where they are now next. Like I said, if this video goes down well, I'm open to doing where are they now videos for any popular athletes. So if you enjoyed, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next video.